Aloha and how's it? Today we're talking all about how to sell like a marketer when you are using LinkedIn. So more on that in a minute. How was your Thanksgiving? We had a chance to hang out with some close friends who invited us over to their house for a get together, which meant I did not have to do any cooking this year, which is absolutely fabulous. Plus, the waves are super fun right around this time of year on the North Shore with some more solid swell. And we also have a local surf competition happening called the Triple Crown, and it's in full swing. So all the pro surfers are out there dominating our favorite breaks right now. So waves are a little more crowded, but really fun to watch, especially if you are learning how to surf and want to watch some good surfers actually do it. So, have you checked out the latest episode of my podcast, The Mango Effect, this week? It is all about M is for mango. If you're curious what the mango way is, like why is Mindy always talking about freaking mangoes, this is where I go into more detail about what it means to live a lifestyle by design. And I have a really fun acronym for mango. So you'll definitely want to tune in this week because it's a really good episode. It opens up a lot of conversation and also kind of gives you a sneak peek behind what mango is all about. And while you're there, check out the other 40 plus episodes about creating a life you love, being a digital entrepreneur, figuring out how to live in rhythm with nature, learning to surf as a grown up, doing life your way, and more. And now it is time for Mondays with Mindy. This is a weekly show on Monday afternoons, if you are based in the US, where I talk about all things LinkedIn pipeline, promo, and profiles, what I like to call the three P's of LinkedIn. So, do you have questions about LinkedIn that you want me to answer? Be sure to like this post. Whether you're watching live or from the replay, leave your questions below because I will answer them either after the show or on a future episode of Mondays with Mindy. This is where I get all of the ideas for the show. When you send questions, I collect them, I group them together, figure out how I can address them in the most effective way on the show. So let's get to today's topic. How do you actually sell like a marketer when you're on LinkedIn? Is there a way that you can actually grow your business or attract your dream job for those of you who are job seekers without doing a hard sell? It should not feel like you are pulling teeth. It should not feel like you're being salesy or slimy and nothing like that when it comes to actually growing your network, growing your business, getting new clients, and starting conversations with the people who matter. So, if you are struggling with what to say to that perfect fit client, that's actually a good thing. So, if you're on LinkedIn and you actually are stopping to pause and think about, I wonder what the right way is to approach messaging. I wonder if I'm doing this correctly. I wonder how people are going to receive the message I'm sending. That's great because you are not doing it like all the others who are just like mass blasting connection invitations to some auto generated list that they haven't even looked at. So you are already ahead of the curve when it comes to using LinkedIn well. So the easy way out is to just adopt the tactics of those salesy, pushy, aggressive sales types on LinkedIn. And is every salesperson like that? No, I work with a lot of really good salespeople who know how to start a conversation. So I've even seen some people on the border of coming across as even a little bit creepy when they start talking about things that are buried in Facebook somewhere that they would have to look very hard to find. So you really want to walk the right line here. You want to keep it professional enough, but you want people to know that you did your homework. Personalization is important, but it needs to be just the right amount of personalization, not creepy. So, jump starting a cold conversation on LinkedIn, it doesn't have to be complicated when you just act like a real human being and not a bot. I believe that LinkedIn is the most powerful tool for you to connect one to one with your ideal clients and potential customers. And today we're going to talk about a few ways that you can start warming up people in your DMs, in your LinkedIn messages, and how these awesome conversations can actually turn into new business or new opportunities for you. So, more on that very soon. Aloha. For those who don't know me, my name is Mindy Rosser. I'm the founder of Mindy Rosser Marketing, and I have a program called the LinkedIn Accelerator for those who want to go from 0 to 60 on LinkedIn with their profile and their network. We are actually kicking off the next cohort in January, so stay tuned. It's right around the corner. I help superstars who feel they are the best kept secret in their industry to become that go to visible expert in their niche so they can get that next opportunity, grow their business, and scale their impact. In this live, we are going to talk about why not learning how to do social selling on LinkedIn is causing you to stunt your network growth and derail your lead generation goals, and how you can easily start up new conversations with the right people who want to work with you. So, are you ready? Let's do this. Go ahead and like this post, whether you're live or watching from the replay, to give it some social love. Now, take a drink right here. So, one of the biggest mistakes I see a lot of people make when they first get started on using LinkedIn, especially if they're trying to get into conversations with their ideal prospects, they actually start treating LinkedIn messages like they would an email campaign or outreach. So that's a big, big no no on LinkedIn. When it comes to figuring out what to say, you don't want it to have like this perfect sequence of messages that you're sending at perfect intervals in a daily nurture sequence. That is horrible on LinkedIn. So a lot of times people will craft these perfect sequence of messages and stick to the sequence rather than adjusting after message one based on the direction that the conversation is leading. So, an email sequence is very different. It's much more one way, at least for most people, than putting somebody into like an email sequence. If you're trying to do that on LinkedIn, it's going to feel really awkward because people expect that you are behind the message and that they are actually in a dialogue with you. So, if you send something that's just really generic, they're going to go, you're not even looking at your messages. What are you doing? So, this takes a lot of practice to get it just right, but you've got to start somewhere. And it's okay to make mistakes. If you've done email sequences in your LinkedIn messages, that's okay. Just don't do them anymore. Okay. Just make a decision today. No more sequences in your messages. So, typical sequences that I see kind of flow like this: I'm an expert in, look at all my amazing accomplishments. I solved this problem. Then would you like to chat about this problem that I assume that you have? Or great, here's my calendar. Then why didn't you respond? Let's chat. Here's my calendar again. I guess you're not interested, but maybe you know somebody who is. So you probably have been on the receiving end of some message that kind of felt similar to that. Like, I'm so amazing. Look at me. I work with these people. Book a discovery call, book a call, book a call. If you have not been on the receiving end of those messages, you probably haven't been on LinkedIn very long. So all of us have experienced that to some degree, I would say, unless you're brand spanking new to LinkedIn. And I often want to say, when I receive these messages, I want to tell the person, please don't stop sending messages like this. I know some great copywriter that you hired helped you to write these messages and told you it was a brilliant idea, but just start chatting with me like a real person. And that's what people want on LinkedIn. So there's nuance to reaching out on LinkedIn. In emails, when we opt into someone's list, we expect to hear a bit more of the backstory, the about me, the about my business, about my services, blah, blah, blah. These old ways at how we start conversations via email also kind of affect how we reach out on LinkedIn. So the thing is, on LinkedIn, people don't care about all that backstory unless they specifically ask you for those details. They want to know one thing: who are you as a person from a professional point of view? Who are you? Why are you connecting with me? Why are you talking to me? This is something that I actually learned a lot about after moving to Hawaii. On the mainland, people always lead their questions with, what do you do? It's always about your profession. What are you doing right now? Where do you live? In Hawaii, people want to know, who are you? This is a very important first step before they ever ask what you do. And I've actually known people for years here, and they still have no idea what I do, and they don't care. It doesn't matter to them. So when I applied the same principle to how I approached LinkedIn, I noticed that I started getting into more two-way conversations with people because I care about who they are, not just what I could potentially sell them at some point. That's a bonus. Like, if we do business at some point, great. And that usually happens because I do a lot of talking and DMing on LinkedIn, and there's always going to be synergy if you do that often enough. But that's a bonus, that's an aside. That is not the absolute end goal. And I do not want people to feel like I'm starting a conversation with them so I can pitch them something at the end. So, all you need to do in your LinkedIn messages is have a good back and forth conversation. That's it. And most of us are pretty good at this. Even if you feel like you're not, you probably are. So people want to know that you are human. They want you to respond like a human, and they don't want to be hit with a message that feels like a very clever marketer wrote it. So, why are you still hiring expensive social selling consultants to create these messages for you? You know why? A lot of times it's because we don't trust ourselves. We don't believe that we can do it. We think there's somebody out there that's done this more, that is smarter than we are. That trust in yourself, that you know what to say and how to say it, is what is going to make you successful on LinkedIn. Yes, I do help people craft their messages, but I think it's more important that their personality and how they would say things comes across more than anything clever that I could come up with. This is a one to one conversation between you and your perfect client or your perfect networks person, somebody that you want inside of your network. If you're a job seeker, this could be the hiring manager, this could be a recruiter, this could be a headhunter. So you cannot outsource conversation completely on LinkedIn, contrary to what many LinkedIn experts tell you. Treat your conversations as one of the most important aspects of your business development strategy because it is. When you learn how to do conversations well, everything else opens up for you on LinkedIn. Relationships kickstart all of your business growth. That's how it works. You have to do business with people. How you communicate with new customers is the lifeblood of your business pipeline. If you haven't figured this out yet, start sending a few LinkedIn connection invitations like a human to see what happens. You may be very pleasantly surprised about the response you receive. All right. So, Mindy, all right, I get it. I get it. I need to start conversations. Okay. All right. But I'm introverted or I haven't done this before. And I know I need to get more clients, but I have no idea where to start. First thing, remember, we're going to start like a human. We're going to be a human first. We are not going to be a bot. We are not going to use other people's templates that sound nothing like us. So when you meet someone in real life, how do you start that conversation? Think about it. Take some time. No rush. But think about it like, okay, when I meet people, what do I tend to say? Most people tend to have a leading question or a comment, something that they can easily use every single time they meet someone new. So if you're an introvert like me, I know introverts unite, but a lot of people think I'm an extrovert. I am not, I'm an introvert. And if I see someone when I am like out surfing or something like that, something out and about, I usually have to see that person like dozens of times before I will ever say something, unless they're in my immediate circle or they know my kids or I know them somehow and there's a reason for us to interact. And you know what? That's okay. I'm one of those surfers who doesn't say a word. Like, especially if I'm at a new spot or I see a lineup of people I don't recognize. So, first of all, I wait to say anything until I've surfed that same break a couple dozen times and feel like I understand my place in that lineup. And this metaphor applies very much to LinkedIn because on LinkedIn, people do look at your stats. They do look at your profile. How good does it look? Do you have a good headshot? Do you have a lot of connections? Have you worked at interesting places? Have you actually spent some time optimizing your profile? They want to make sure you know the ropes. The same with surfing. With surfing, there's a lot of hierarchy, there's a lot of localism, and it's a big deal in surfing. You never just go straight out. You don't like go to a very popular spot, paddle out, sit there, catch all the waves you want, and hot dog your way through a lineup. You have to pay attention. So I work a lot as a surfer. I'm reading the lineup because that is going to help me catch more waves in the long run. If I'm taking other people's waves, dropping in on them, making a bunch of like kooky mistakes in the lineup, people are going to block me from catching waves and they're not going to like me very much. So it is key for me when I am out there and I'm engaging in that type of environment to understand the rules and know how to play the game. The same thing happens with LinkedIn. So once I've seen somebody, say for example, I've seen somebody out in the lineup probably a couple dozen times. I actually pay attention. I know where they like to sit in the lineup. I know their surfing ability. I know their favorite board. I know what they wear. I know how they approach and work with other surfers. I know what types of waves they like to surf. I know what types of maneuvers they like to do. I study every single person in the lineup because once I understand what they like and what they want to do, I can work around that. So, for example, if there's a surfer and he's a really good surfer or she's a really good surfer and they like to sit really deep. So a lot of times they will come from behind the peak. So like a lot of surfers won't take off there, but these surfers might want to take off behind the peak to gain a little bit of speed down the line. So in that case, I would pay attention, and even though I'm right at the peak, I would make sure not to take off on that wave because that would be blocking them. So it's this little bit of nuance that really helps you develop your skills as a surfer. Likewise, on LinkedIn, you really want to pay attention to the dance. There's kind of like, I call it the dance on LinkedIn. There is a way to interact with people that does not feel spammy. When you kind of have an idea of what's working on LinkedIn, you know how to talk to people on LinkedIn, you're going to feel a lot more comfortable. It's like surfing. When you're at a break, once you get comfortable in the lineup, you may not take a lot of waves at the beginning, but after you've surfed there a half dozen times, a dozen times, you're going to start knowing when you can take off, when it's appropriate, and how not to get in people's way. So the same happens on LinkedIn. So just be patient with yourself. If you are just learning, you're going to figure it out. And remember that less is more. You don't have to say a lot. When I'm out there surfing, I am not a chatty person. I don't like to talk. I'm here to surf. When people are on LinkedIn, similar. People are there to do business. They are not there just to have pointless conversations. So don't waste their time either pitching them, and don't waste their time trying to sell your services or talk about the weather. Like, you know, get to the meat of it. This is about being a professional and talking about professional things. So you can learn a lot about someone before you ever get into a back and forth LinkedIn dialogue with them. Once they respond, you are going to actually pick up on the direction they want to go with the conversation. So, here are some responses that I tend to notice when I'm interacting with people on LinkedIn, and hopefully these are helpful for you too. So, sometimes I'll get a response, and the I would say the vibe of the message is, thanks for connecting, but no further communication necessary. Like they connected, but that's it. So, in that point, you definitely want to end the conversation. You don't want to keep it going or force it. Another response may be, what do you sell? I might be looking for someone like you. And most of us like these types of messages or responses because, of course, we're going to tell them what we offer and what we sell. So that's an easy one to follow up with. And actually, do it well. Like, don't just send them like a PDF with your services and every single thing you offer. Like, try to figure out what they actually want to purchase from you. And then I match because there's a lot of different things I sell. So I will actually ask a little bit more information and then tell them what I sell that actually matches what they're interested in, not just giving them a smorgasbord of stuff. Another response you might get is, how did you find me? So if you're really good at doing LinkedIn research, you may get this question a lot because people are like, wait, how did you find me? Like, where did you come from? Like, how did we meet? So make sure you have a good reason and a good connecting point, a good way to answer that question. There's another one I get a lot, which is, let's talk shop. I love meeting new people. So some people are really going to want to talk about it, especially if you're a colleague or a peer in the space. They like to talk about business. They like to talk about work. They want to hear what you're working on. I meet a lot of course creators. So a lot of times we're talking about the courses we're working on. We're talking about launches. And that's a really easy way to feel like you're kind of around that water cooler and also talk about business without trying to sell each other anything. Sometimes I'll get a response like, can we hop on a quick Zoom call? I would love to connect. Can we collaborate? Things like this. So be prepared. Have your Calendly link ready if you want to hop on a Zoom call with your LinkedIn connections. And sometimes I get a response like, I want to tell you all about myself. And those ones kind of make me laugh because I'm like, really? You're going to send me like your entire biography, like your executive summary? Like, okay, great. I kind of roll my eyes at those ones. So you're going to get a lot of different responses on LinkedIn. Just be prepared. You want to know how to deal with each type of response so you can efficiently get through your messages and also move those ones forward that actually should turn into new business for you. So you're going to use all of this knowledge of reading the lineup, if you want a surfing metaphor, to craft a response that lets them know you have done your homework and that you belong in their network and their LinkedIn messages. So that's really all it takes. It sounds too simple sometimes, but most people will never take the time to treat their messages in this way. A lot of people just scan through them and look for somebody who's asking about their services and skip over the rest of people. A lot of times people don't respond to you. So you may get into a back and forth and then it just kind of dies. So either it got buried in their messages and they forgot, or it wasn't that important to them. So you just have to really understand how to use your messages well and connect with your people. So it's really about cultivating a relationship. When you can do that well on LinkedIn, you are going to thrive. It's going to be helpful. It's going to be fun. You're going to actually see business moving forward. You're going to be able to collaborate with really awesome people. So this approach may work to some level, but just keep in mind that we are not talking about trying to, hard sell anyone into buying our services. This is about opening the conversation, getting it started, and then seeing where it leads. All right. So let's talk about 3 steps to selling like a marketer when it comes to LinkedIn. So, we're going to talk about exactly what it takes to turn a cold message. We talked about the cold message just now, and how does that actually turn into a great Zoom call using LinkedIn? So, Zoom, whatever you use, Teams. If you do phone calls, good old fashioned phone calls, they're kind of underrated these days. Here's what it takes to create a high converting outreach message and how to set up your LinkedIn outreach process so you can fill your sales pipeline the mango way. So, first question, you must answer this question when you are using LinkedIn, especially if you're trying to grow your business with LinkedIn and having conversations. How many conversations do you want to have? You need to figure out exactly who your perfect client is on LinkedIn, and that may be different from other social channels. So keep that in mind. You then need to do some research to figure out how many of them are on LinkedIn. If you have a very broad market, this may not be a concern. For example, if you are targeting marketers, and it doesn't matter what level they are, all marketers need your product. Okay, then you're going to have a bazillion people to reach out to. If you are looking at a very narrow market and you think, okay, being realistic, there are probably fewer than 1,000 people in total on LinkedIn who would be a good fit for you, you are going to need to be extra, extra cautious about taking your time with your outreach message. If, for example, if you're targeting Fortune 500 companies, your market is going to be a lot smaller than somebody who is targeting all entrepreneurs. So keep in mind, I like to actually do an addressable market assessment for most of my clients. And I teach those inside of my programs how to easily run this assessment because this gives you a more accurate sense of how many months worth of target market runway you have inside LinkedIn. This helps you plan out your campaigns. This helps you understand how much attention to detail you need to do when you are writing your messages because if you send a bazillion messages to a very small market, you're going to saturate the market. And if nobody responds, you're kind of out of luck. So you need to know how big your audience is and how many conversations you need to have every single month to generate the necessary revenue for your business. A lot of people I work with have no idea how many conversations they need to have every month to hit their revenue target. This is something that is foundational to being a business owner. You must know how much you need in your pipeline to generate enough revenue at the end. So, for example, if you have a close rate of 80%, which is really good, you may not need that many people in your pipeline to actually close. And if you have a big ticket item, if you're selling like a coaching package or something that's 5 or 6 figures, you don't need a ton of people most of the time, depending on what your business model is, of course. So you don't need as many conversations. If you are selling a smaller ticket item and you don't have as good of a close rate, then you may need a lot of people. You may need to have a lot of conversations. So just keep that in mind. How many conversations do you need? If you don't know this yet, look at your historical data and just figure that out. Look at the last 3 months of calls that you've had. How many of those people actually turned into clients? Okay, so that's an easy way to get started with that number. Second, how do you respond to keep the conversation going on LinkedIn? So, we talked a little bit about this earlier, but it all comes down to really knowing your target audience and what they respond to. If you already have existing customers, then think about the types of messages they responded to when you reached out to them all that time ago. Now, if you got referrals and you didn't really do any outreach, that may be a little trickier. So, you're going to want to pay attention to the themes and the problems that you help them solve, and also how you can break the ice to start that conversation. Sometimes, depending on what you're selling, or what your market is, how comfortable people feel talking about their problems, it may be tricky to figure this out. But ideally, pay attention to your conversations with customers. If people tend to come to you by referral, what does that referral source say about you in the message? Pay attention to that too. I get lots of referrals. So I always listen for the keywords and how I am described by the person who refers business to me because there are clues that I can use in my cold outreach. So if people describe me as, a LinkedIn social selling expert, then maybe I would want to use that terminology in my outreach and just kind of think in terms of what people are referring you as. And if they are referring you as a LinkedIn profile writer, a lot of times I get referrals to write people's profiles, then I will just make sure to adapt my language accordingly. So just pay attention to what people say and use that language in your outreach. So, do you share any similarities with the types of organizations you are a member of or communities you both belong to? So, for example, a lot of the times I will do outreach to people when we share the same community or we went through a digital course together, went through a program together. And this is gold when it comes to messaging because it gives you an easy way to start a conversation that feels natural. You both went through an online experience together. Now you're talking about it. So if it's meant to continue beyond those pleasantries, it will. If not, that's okay too. You've made a new business friend who went through something similar, and maybe you'll cross paths again down the road. So when you have something in common, look for commonalities. This will actually help you keep the conversation going and figure out what to say at the start. Also, do you have a podcast or a show or a blog where you interview experts like them? If you do, this is also a very natural way to start a conversation that does not have a salesy feel to it because you think they'd be a great guest and they could contribute their insights. Plus, you get a bigger audience in return because they usually will share their episode with their fans and followers. So it's a win for everyone. So really keep in mind, it all depends on your target audience, and you have to figure out what gets their attention without feeling like a sales pitch. No sales pitches here. All right. Number three, how do you refine your process to get more conversations? Now, most of you are not going to have the problem of getting too many conversations. I do work with some clients who do, and we have to scale it back or pause for a week or two because they get too many. Most of you are not going to experience that problem, especially at the start. So, what you need to do is you need to test your process. So, literally, what you need to do is research 10 to 30 people that are perfect fit prospects and test your messaging over the course of 30 days. So, you're picking, think about a person a day, reaching out to one person a day for 30 days. So you're going to measure your results to see what works. If your sales process is typically longer than 30 days, you may need to simply pay attention to how many conversations you have during that time frame as opposed to how many clients you closed during that time. So I have some clients and their sales process is quite long. Sometimes it's 18 months, 2 years. So if you are in that type of sales process, if you have enough historical data to look back on, great. But if you're doing a test and a trial, then just pay attention to how many conversations you're getting, how many connections you're getting. You won't be able to close the sale within 30 days, but you are opening doors that will lead to new business down the road. So the goal here is to figure out a cadence that will work for you ongoing to give you the number of conversations you need to fill your sales pipeline. So once you figure out how many people you need at the top to get the right number of people out the bottom, boom, you figured it out. You've cracked the nut. So I work with people inside my programs to figure out every single step along the way and how to actually assess the results they get over a 30, 60, 90-day period so that they can understand which levers they need to pull to improve their results. But you don't have to work with somebody like me. All you have to do is run this test for yourself. It starts with a good connection invitation. Then you continue the conversation, and that leads to a sales conversation. Once you get into a good rhythm with your outreach, you can then rinse and repeat. So I have worked with clients who keep the same rhythm for several months, some for 1 to 2+ years before we change anything because you don't mess with the system that's working. And once it starts working on LinkedIn, it usually works for a very long time. LinkedIn is not as trendy. It's not as much a fad as a lot of other platforms. So turning cold conversations into new clients on LinkedIn can be as simple as you want it to be. It's all about responding to your messages in a way that works for you and generates the results that you want. All right, so that's it. That's it. We talked about a lot today, though. So, what additional questions do you have about turning cold conversations into new business on LinkedIn? How are you selling like a marketer? It's not about the sales pitch, it's literally about warming them up, having conversation, and you're also having fun while you're doing it. So, leave your questions or comments below or shoot me a private message. I am happy to answer them. All right. If you are learning, if you are looking for that extra edge to get you started on the right path with LinkedIn so you can start booking those perfect fit clients, then get on the wait list for the next cohort of the LinkedIn Accelerator. We are kicking off in January of 2023. It is tailored to take you through all of the sections on your LinkedIn profile in just 5 days flat. So 1 week and you are off to the LinkedIn races, getting all your questions answered. You'll know how to grow your network and start getting these types of conversations. If you're interested, here's the link to get on the wait list. You'll also see it in the comments below this, and you can find out a few more details. I will see you all next week on Mondays with Mindy. Feel free to leave any questions or comments below, and my inbox is open if you want to message me directly. That's it for this week. I will see you next week.